Welcome to Thursday. Welcome to the 24th of June, 2021. Good to see you guys this week. This is Blair. Again, those of you this is your first time here, some of you may know me as best-selling author of 3 books in the areas of sales, team, little voice mastery, personal development, and a myriad of other things, and the trainer of some of the greatest trainers and leaders and facilitators in the world. So this week, I want to talk to you a little bit about we're going to discuss ownership. And the word is used quite loosely, but if I could give you an idea of ownership, and again, if you have comments, questions about anything I'm talking about, type them into the comment section. I'll do my best to keep up with it and to answer, and we can have a great discussion here for the time we're together, okay? So, yeah, I want to make this one count because I will not be broadcasting next week or the week after because I will be in Tanzania climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, going for my 11th summit of the mountain. So anyway, ownership. You know, in business, let's look at business. But we're talking about ownership, not only of your business, but your business, your family, your life, your destiny, everything. And the rules are pretty much the same. I'm not saying they're easy, but they're articulated pretty well. And so if I give you an idea, when it comes to business, for example, most people that want to be entrepreneurs, and most of you are entrepreneurs or soon to be or want to be, people start off as dreamers. I dream of having my own business, being in business for myself, not having a boss, having my own time, my unlimited income, and all those things. And you kind of dream about it. But in the meantime, you know, it's kind of like the old adage, you know, if you got 4 frogs on a log and one of them decides to jump in the water, how many are on the log? I'll say it again, 4 frogs on the log, one of them decides to jump in the water, how many do you have left on the log? Well, the answer is still 4, because just because the frog decided to do something doesn't mean he actually jumped into the water. He might still be sitting on the log, okay? Same thing. A lot of people have dreams and ideas, but they don't take the first step. They don't take the action. We know that. You know that. I know that. We know it. Okay? So the degree to which, morning, Vietnam. How are you? I was just on a call with you guys not too long ago. That we know that, and we give it lip service. But let me just tell you something. In my experience, my years of experience as a trainer, as a coach, as a business owner, owning trucking companies, owning software companies, owning being a father of two great kids, I'm going to and 3 dogs. I can tell you that ownership is no joke. Ownership is no joke. And we all say that we have to take responsibility and all that stuff until something happens and a person is pushed up against some decisions. Then you find out how well you really own the situation. So anyway, we start off as a dreamer. Okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be an entrepreneur. You finally overcome the fear that says, I'm going to screw up, I'm going to fail, I'm not going to make it. Who's going to take care of me? You know, my brother and my sister and my parents said, if I do that, I'm a fool, that 50% fail in 3 years. The other 50% of the 50% fail in the next couple of years. Why am I, you know, and so all this little voice going on there keeps you stuck in your job. And it's good because it's 9 to 5, 8 to 5, whatever it is. And you mostly have your weekends off. But then you get that, as Michael Gerber calls it, the entrepreneurial seizure, where you know that I can do this. I got this. I'm gonna do it. I'm taking a deep breath. I'm taking a jump, and you jump. Or maybe you start with a side hustle, a side business while you're working, and you go, I really like doing this, but I don't like my job, and you make the jump. Whatever the jump is, whatever that jump is, now you are a solopreneur. You're in what we call the S, self-employed quadrant. You're in the self-employed quadrant. Hello, Lars. Hello, Mustafa. Nien. Tui Lin. Okay, good to see you guys. We're talking about ownership of your business, ownership of your life, ownership of any process. So now your hours, your lifestyle kind of jumps from, quantum leap. Hopefully it's a quantum leap forward, not a quantum leap backward. So what happens is that now instead of working 9 to 5, you're working 24/7. Yeah, because if you don't sell anything, if you don't generate income, you don't eat, and neither does your family. So now the game is on. Game is on. It's like the coach blew the whistle. You're out on the field, and whack, you get knocked down right away because you will fail. And if you're an entrepreneur, you know this. This is just normal. You fail, and you fail again. You fail, and you correct, and you learn, and you move forward. But those people that have a low tolerance for failure or had a very big investment in looking good, not being embarrassed, wanting to get good grades, sometimes it's a little more difficult for them because they don't have the mindset to be able to roll with it. So now you're a solopreneur. You're not an owner. In my mind, you're really not an owner because you don't control your calendar. You don't really control your life. You are at the mercy of whatever business you can find, wherever you can find it. Yes, you take ownership of the work that you're doing, but you're really not what I call a business owner yet, okay? With hard work, you turn your roller coaster, because, in that stage, it's like your spouse is going, we spent all of our money, our savings are gone, you're never home. I thought we were going to make millions. I don't see the millions. I don't even see you. What's going on with all this? And he or she's at your ear. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you've never been an entrepreneur because that's kind of the stage we all go through, right? So with enough diligence and study, and getting right answers from right people, right mentors, then you ultimately begin to move into what I call the ownership bracket, which is a bit above solo. What's ownership? Well, that means that you're now not just managing people, you're managing systems. You have systems, and the systems manage the people. So it's teams and systems that run your business, not you. You maybe help, maybe you're the best salesperson there, maybe you're the visionary, but the business is running itself, pretty much running itself without you. Now that's ownership. And there's actually a level above that. For most people, that's pretty good because you don't have to work so much. You're making money while you're sleeping, but there's a level above it, which is what I call teacher leader or leader. At that point, you don't have to really sell much. You have a brand. The brand attracts people. You are a market force, and you are a change agent wherever you go. That's another whole level, which, again, by the way, in marketing and sales, if you can achieve that level in your business, people come to you based upon who you are, what you know, not what you market to them, not even what you sell. They just buy regardless of the price. And there are quite a few examples, like Apple's like that, Nike's like that, and even in smaller business, Rich Dad's like that. So again, that's something to aspire to. But the topic today is ownership. Let's just look at the ownership level. What does ownership mean? It means you own the whole process. You are responsible. I'm going to use that word a lot here. So you're responsible, right? So what's that mean? That means that anything, listen closely, anything that happens that goes wrong, you're responsible. I don't care if you have a team of 50 and 25 of them screwed up or didn't show up to work or whatever happened, it's your responsibility as an owner. And the minute you put on the ownership hat, that's your responsibility. Now, is that only the owner of the company? No, it could be the team members too. What brought this whole topic up is a great book that I'm reading. I could recommend it. It's called Extreme Ownership: How the U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win, written by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. Very interesting book. And let me give you some examples of what he's talking about. These are Navy SEALs. And I'm not advocating turning your business or your life or your family into a military unit at all. That's about as far as from what I would recommend. But they talk about extreme ownership. Well, what's extreme ownership? I'll give you an example that he uses in the book. They were fighting in, I believe, Iraq. His unit was fighting in Iraq, Jocko Willink. And in one of the most war-torn cities in all of Iraq. I mean, it was held by Al-Qaeda and the insurgents for years and years and years. And so Allied forces were going in there to liberate the city. And it was just door to door, very bloody, very devastating combat. He came across in this combat, he came across a unit that was stalled in the middle of a street. There was a tank with its muzzle pointing at a building, point blank range, heavy fire coming from the United States forces, shooting into the building, shooting coming out of the building. I mean, just withering gunfire. I mean, it was unbelievable. He showed up and he says, "What's going on?" And the commander on the ground says, he goes, "We can't get past here because of this building and the insurgents that are in it." And he started asking some questions, and he said things did not add up, because it didn't add up. He was asking questions that did not have good answers. He says, "Just a minute." And so while the bullets are flying, he running undercover. He runs over to the building, the target building that they're about ready to blow up and drop bombs on from up above. And he comes up to the wall and he kicks open the gate that surrounds the building. Kicks open the gate and jumps in with his rifle ready. And he comes face to face with a United States Marine Corps gunnery officer. And they're looking at each other like, "What are you doing here?" Or what? And so it was like this, what's going on here? Long story short, the people in the building were American. The people fighting them were American. It was something they call blue on blue, where you actually mistake your team for the enemy, and you start shooting each other and kill each other. So it's a horrible thing to happen, and a very shameful type of thing that would happen. So they called it all off. Lives were saved, but there was a big hearing. Like, how did this possibly happen? And commanders flew in, and there was a hearing, and Jocko Willink, who's responsible as commanding officer, he had to create a presentation with PowerPoint, all this stuff. He gets in front of it, and he goes, as he came through all the reasons, all the things that went wrong, how did this possibly happen? He says something was wrong. Something was missing. Something was missing. Okay? So he stood up in front of the group, and immediately he had all the team there, plus the commanding officers. He said, "Okay, so who's to blame for this?" One sergeant raised his hand. He goes, "I'm to blame. I should have done blah, 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 blah." He goes, "Nope, you're wrong." Okay, who's to blame? A couple other people spoke about, "I'm to blame because I should have." "No, you're all wrong." He goes, "There's only one person in this room to blame. One person only." He says, "And that person is me. I'm the commanding officer. I'm to blame." And the whole room went silent. Extreme ownership. Regardless of whether he was holding the rifle or manning the tank or whatever it was, he was responsible. That's extreme ownership. So rather than getting court-martialed, which was an inevitability, he proceeded to tell them, he goes, "I'm to blame. And here are all the things that went wrong, my responsibility, and here's the plan that's never going to happen again." And with a pat on the back, they sent him on to make corrections. Became one of the greatest instructors of SEAL teams going forward after that, because of the lessons learned from that huge mistake. Now, it's a long story. Why do I mention it? I mention it because there comes a point in time when you are responsible for everything. Whether you did it or not, whether there's to blame or not, the minute an excuse comes up, "Well, so-and-so didn't," you will already shirk your responsibility. "I didn't know." You've shirked your responsibility. "Nobody told me." You've shirked your responsibility. Okay? "My team doesn't sell well." You've shirked your responsibility. Why? Because you always have to ask yourself, what could I have done? What could I do to prevent that from happening? And if you ask yourself that question, you'll always find an answer. Same is true with your family. Your kid gets bad grades, or they get in trouble at school. You're gonna blame? Yeah, you're gonna punish your children. Yeah, you could, but who's to blame? I'm to blame. I'm his dad. And what was it about the way that I coached him or didn't coach him that he thought it was okay to do something like that? That's on me. Yeah, it's on him, but you would hope that he takes the same level of responsibility for his action that I do for mine, which is the key. Ownership is not just the owner. It's my point. Probably could have said that earlier. Ownership is not just the owner. The ownership is everybody in the organization that takes 100% ownership for all the good, the bad, and the even in between stuff. When you have an organization like that, there's all you can do is win. All you can do is win. Okay? Because there will always be people that don't want to. And then you have to ask yourself, do you want people like that on your team? And they deselect themselves. So I'm inspired by the book. I'm inspired by the book because it plays to a career of studying leadership for me, of how I can become a better leader. I mentioned to some of you before is that when hey, Oat, vine pagare. When's my next program? My next program is Kilimanjaro on Monday. I'm leaving for there, but we'd be back and we have a couple of programs at the end of July and quite a few of them in August. Go to blairsinger.com. You see it right on the screen here. Go to blairsinger.com and check out the calendar. We got a ton of programs and they're coming up and they're great because you can sit right where you are right now and participate in the program. You don't have to get on an airplane to go. So anyway, ownership. I forgot what I was saying. Ownership, that everybody in the organization takes ownership of the process. Many years ago, when I was in the air freight trucking business, some of you may have heard the story, is that we lost $750,000 in the first 9 months we were in business. Only when I had two other partners. Who is to blame? Well, I could say that my partner who didn't keep track of the books very well. I could say that my other partner who actually stole money from the company. I could say that it was our staff who really, our sales team that really didn't sell well. I could say it was our customers, who many of which went out of business before they paid us for the services we provided. But you know what? There's one thing in common: me. It was me. It was so many parts of it as me. It could be overwhelming sometimes, but it's liberating to know that I can make you, all of us can make a difference if you 100% own it. What gets in the way? Well, what gets in the way is our excuses. Where do the excuses come from? Excuses come from ego. Nobody likes to look bad. Nobody wants to admit that they don't know what they're doing. Nobody wants to admit that their idea might have been wrong. Or nobody wants to admit that they omitted something. I mean, what about the organization whose sales team is lackluster? And the sales, I think one of the examples in the book is the CEO of the company decides to change the compensation structure to lower the commissions. Everybody's freaking out because now we're going to lose salespeople. They're going to go to the competition. And she goes, no, it'll work. But what was the problem? The managers who needed to execute that with their sales teams didn't believe in it. So when you make a decision, when you take on a mission, when you make a decision to do something, if you don't believe in it, you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to certainly sell other people on doing it. And so what that CEO failed to understand is that her managers did not understand why she was lowering the commissions. And she thought, well, they should know. And then she goes, okay, I got it. When she went to her managers and actually said, does anybody want to know why we're lowering the commissions? People go, yeah. And when she explained it as a whole cost benefit, how actually the salespeople, the top performers would actually make more money, they gain more market share to lower their costs. Everybody goes, yeah, that sounds great. Why didn't you tell us that to begin with? So you could easily, and they took off from there. Now, you could just as easily say the sales team sucks. Or you could say, or if you're a sales manager, our CEO's out of touch. They don't get it. She doesn't get it. And I can't, it's going to be hard to work here and the morale goes down. Or everybody could take responsibility. Manage, who's to blame? Everybody. CEO for not explaining it, which she owned, and the managers for not asking when they didn't understand. So at every level, extreme ownership doesn't mean that you just have extreme ownership. It means that everybody on your team, everybody in your family owns the process of your health, of your life, of your business, of your income. I found that as a reminder, as I'm reading this book, is I remind myself every time my brain, something goes wrong, that my brain immediately wants to make an excuse or to blame somebody or get angry with somebody. And it happened the other day. It wasn't even anything major. And I just the minute I do that, I am no longer practicing ownership. I'm deflecting it. I'm not taking responsibility. What was it that I did not communicate clearly to somebody else? Or maybe they didn't understand what I was talking about. Or maybe it's too complicated for them and they need some training on it. All those things. And when you do that, things change quite dramatically. Things change quite dramatically. Blair Singer talks about ownership, how everyone in the organization should take ownership instead of getting into the blame game. Each person is required to take responsibility. Liberating to know that each of us can make a difference if we 100% let go of excuses. Love this. Thank you, Namrata. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. I mean, well said. You said it in about a tenth of the time that I said it. But I'm just going to challenge all of you right now to take a look at your life. And if you want to understand what real ownership is, look at the number of times that you make an excuse, or you blame, or you just ignore or deny. In that moment, you'll know you're not taking complete ownership. Okay, that's number one. And not only that you actually make the excuse. If you think it, like the little fight you have in your brain. When I see so and so, I need to tell them, blah blah, blah, right? All that. That's probably even the most important place where the excuses are made. And what would life be like if you took 100% ownership of everything, particularly your health? If you're looking in the mirror and you don't like what you see, or you're running up the stairs and you're out of breath, there's only one person to blame. And you really don't even need to blame. I don't even like the word blame. Not even to blame yourself. There's only one person that's responsible for that, and that's you. No matter how much money you make or don't make, however much food you eat or don't eat, you can take responsibility for your health. Okay? So again, just would love some of your comments on extreme ownership. They also talk about leadership. They talked about in SEAL team training, which is grueling training for a week with no sleep and sand in your clothes and wet and cold and chafed and bloody. They have boat races, and they have these big, heavy rubber boats that like 8 or 10 guys have to carry over their heads, and they got to carry them for miles, and they got to paddle them through the surf and then dump them and get it back in them. And he talks about it. One SEAL training, there were 6 teams. And SEAL boat number 6 was always last, way last. I mean, straggle way behind. And talks about the fact that that's not a good thing in SEAL training, because if that happens, the instructors give the last team more work to do, and you get no rest. He described this team 6. The leader allowed, people, they're bickering and cursing and blaming and shouting at each other the whole time, and the leader was right in there with them. And so to make a point, after a couple of days of this, he called the leader of boat 6 and the leader of boat 2 to come talk to him. Boat 2 was winning every race. Boat 2 was like kicking butt, right? And team 6 was the end. He goes, okay, starting right now, the 2 of you leaders are switching boats. So the leader for the winning boat 2 will now be the leader for boat 6. And the losing leader will be on boat 2. Guess what happened? The very next race, team 6 was not dead last. It won. But close behind was team 2. So for the rest of the week, team 6 kept winning, and team 2 was right there with them. Okay. Now, what does that say? You could say that the problem with team 6 is that they had a bad team. They just couldn't get together, horrible communicators, all that stuff. You change the leader out, and immediately the same group of people that were so underperforming outperform everybody else. Now, what about team 2 that now had the bad leader? Well, the good leader had instilled a culture of winning on that team. And so when the bad leader came in, they were able to be astute enough to pick up on what was going on and keep it going. Interesting. So what's the motto? There's no such thing as a bad team. There are only bad leaders. I'll say it again. There's no such thing as a bad team. There are only bad leaders. And with that, I leave you with that discussion on teams to take a look at the people around you. If you want to blame them or you want to use them to make excuses, then you're just making them worse. It's not about them. It's about you. It's about us. It's about us as leaders and owners. Because certainly if we take a look at what's happening outside with government politics and all of the blame game and the excuse game, we are in dire need of decent leaders. But that kind of leader that takes ownership, kind of leader that says, look, this task can be difficult and we're going to have to figure it out. But if we stick together, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out and we'll keep going until we do. As opposed to just blaming, well, you did this, no, you did that, and all the misinformation that goes on out there. So again, your comments about extreme leadership would be most welcome. Okay. Those of you that have been with me before, you know that I mentioned that when I took my first personal development program back in 1982, it was on the island of Maui in Hawaii. And 15 minutes into the program, the lead trainer put up a flip chart that said, when you make mistakes, you tend to want to blame. He goes, or you make excuses, you justify. He says, and I had all the reasons to do that. My ex-wife, my partners. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, me too. That's kind of like my story. He says, but it wasn't until I came from the point of view of being, and he wrote the word responsible at the top of the page and drew a line under it. He says, until I came above this line and took 100% responsibility or ownership for everything that was going on in my life, nothing changed until that point. At the point that I took responsibility, everything started to shift. Everything started to take off. Doesn't mean everything's going to work. It just means that now you're beginning to move in the right direction. So my challenge for you until the next time I see you is just take a look and jot down, if you want to, on a piece of paper or a scorecard, the number of times that your little voice wants to blame or justify. And even if you're right to justify, even if you're right to blame, even if they are to blame, okay, it doesn't matter. It's about you taking ownership that sets the example. Then they take ownership and they take ownership and they take ownership. Imagine an organization, imagine a government where everybody took 100% ownership without blaming anybody else. Hard to imagine. What about a school system that did that? What about a healthcare system that did that? What about if you could do that just in your own family and instill that ethic of extreme ownership? Okay. So again, I'm not sure, if you like war stories and you study the military, which I do. I've never been in the military. Good book. There it is. Good. There it is. Good book. It's a good book. But if not, I just want you to get and I understand this book's not for everybody, but I'm just going to say this, is that the greatness that you have is going to be determined by the people around you. I'll say it again. The greatness that you want to have for yourself is going to be determined by the people around you. You won't do anything by yourself, good or bad, okay? You certainly won't achieve much greatness without a team or without a group of people around you. So if greatness is a function of the people around you, then the question is, what kind of a leader are you? Do you take 100% ownership, extreme ownership? Are you willing to shut down your ego when somebody tells you you're wrong, or that what you did didn't work, and not get defensive about it? Defensiveness is a very powerful little voice tool that keeps you from taking ownership. You get defensive. Well, I did this and I did that, and you need to know this. You need to no. Just shut up and own it. Because no matter what, you could have done it better. I could have done it better. Okay. So again, extreme ownership. So what would your life, what would your project, what would your mission, what would it all look like if you surround yourself with people like that? And it's, again, like I said, it's not about them. It's about, if it's your mission, it's about you. And if you're working with somebody else on their mission, it's still about you. If you don't understand something, you ask. And if you don't agree with something, you let it be known that you don't agree and you don't understand. And that's taking responsibility. It's not blaming, saying, I don't get it. And then let the other person explain it to you, okay? So that's my thought. If it is to be, it's up to me. Yeah, it is, but it's up to us as well. It's up to us. If everybody says, if it is to be, it's up to me, that's a good thing. Now you got a good team. But to say, if it is to be, to me, it's up to us. If it is to be, it's up to us. And I'm very blessed to have those kind of people, a lot of those kind of people around me. Sometimes I'm the one that's the problem, I mean, honestly. And one thing that I've learned over the years is to admit to my mistakes and admit to my weaknesses and frailties early, so that I'm not pumping people up to believe that I'm somebody that I'm not, okay? So, hey, Isabel, good to see you. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. So anybody have any comments about ownership, extreme ownership? That means in the face of everything. In the case of, for these guys in places like Fallujah in Iraq, and where bullets are flying and grenades are blowing up and IEDs are destroying vehicles and ripping people apart, very easy to blame, but very difficult to take ownership. But in the eye of the battle, the person that takes complete ownership inspires other people to do the same thing. And if they don't, you don't want them on your team. Quite honestly, life is too short. You don't want them on your team. Alpha mindset. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yep, that's right. I'm not sure who that came up with that. I heard that in Tanzania from the Maasai warriors. That's what they always say as well. Alpha mindset. I'm not sure what that is, but an alpha mindset is, I'm assuming, is a dominant mindset. But alpha assumes other people are beta. And while some people are, when it comes to ownership, I think it goes beyond the alpha mindset. You don't have to be an alpha male or an alpha whatever in order to take extreme ownership of what you're doing. Thank you, Shriman Traj. All the best on the mountain trip. Yep, see? Whoops. That's one of those Maasai warriors, and that's Kilimanjaro. Okay, a painting actually. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's been 2 years since we've been there. I've been training hard. I'm gonna continue training hard for the next couple of days, and then the long plane ride over. Sigma Alpha. Okay, that's a Sigma is an alpha mindset, and then there's a Sigma Alpha as a caretaker. That'd be interesting. I'd like to know that information. I'm not familiar with that information. Okay. Any other comments that you have, just type them in. Again, extreme ownership, U.S. Navy SEALs, how they win. Okay. And it's I'm actually listening to it, which is the authors actually read the book. So on audio, which is unusual. Usually people get readers. I've read a couple of my books. I think I've read one or two of them. I don't remember, but I got somebody else read the other ones, and it's grueling work to get it done. But these guys, You can tell just from the sound of their voices, they're very inspirational leaders. Okay. All right. Soul versus ego. Yeah. Thank you, Lars. Soul versus ego. Yeah. The ego is that part of you that's trying to protect you, to protect your self-esteem, protect your self-image, gets defensive, wants to be better than somebody else, doesn't like being worse than, wants to win, and wants to win, which also sometimes assumes somebody else has to lose. Doesn't have to, but sometimes that comes into the formula too. So it's just, again, your little voice and your ego, all that stuff, same thing. All of that is self-protection. It's not evil or bad. It's not an evil plot. It's just a mechanism that you created, that was created in a lot of us to protect us, to make us feel good about ourselves, even when things aren't going well, to be able to weather the storm, so to speak. But at the end of the day, there's very little correction that comes from there and very little growth that comes from there. So again, thank you guys. If there's no further questions, I'm gonna end off this live and to say thank you, and to say that hope you guys have a great couple of weeks. You won't be hearing from me, but what you can do is go to our YouTube channel. This recording will be up on YouTube. It's on there now, so check it out, and get your friends to go there and subscribe. We do put a lot of work into the YouTube videos, and I hope you enjoy them. Just go there, subscribe, and also go to blairsinger.com and subscribe there too. Subscribe and get your education. If you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to go from dreamer to solo to real owner and business owner leader, we have a couple curriculums. It's a step-by-step process. Just watch the videos, do what I tell you to do, and good things are going to happen. As Mac Newton says, you want to do something, you want to go from S quadrant to the B quadrant, then you hire yourself an expert, somebody knows what they're doing, and do exactly what they tell you to do. I was working with Mac Attram. Some of you know him he's from the UK, and he's worked with me for many years, and he's one of the top trainers in the world right now. And he came onto our program that I was conducting over the weekend, and he told everybody, he says, I thought Blair was a little crazy. He said, but I made a decision that I was going to do exactly what he told me to do. And he did. And I told him that if you do exactly what I tell you to do, your only problem is you will have so much business, you will have no time left, and you're going to need to build a team. So he told that story. He goes, and that's exactly what happened. He goes, the demand was so great, I had to have a team. I think he's got 10 small business coaches. He's on calls all day long, every day. Used to be on the road constantly, and he's leading the life he wants to live. And I want that for you too. Take ownership. Own the process, okay? Let's see here. What's it say? Oh, Barbara Bliss. Nice to see you. The Indians have the saying, we have two wolves. Yes, I know that story. We have two wolves, one black and one white. And the black wolf is kind of the ego. The white one is pure soul, right? So, and the young boy asks the knight, the medieval knight, he says, you have two dogs, which one wins? Does the dark or the two wolves, which wolf wins inside of you? Is it the dark wolf or the white wolf? And the answer was this: whichever one you feed. Whichever wolf you feed will be the strongest. So feed the one that makes you to be the best that you can be. Don't feed the black wolf, okay, in this case. All right? So with that, you guys have a great week. Have a great couple of weeks. Have a great summer wherever you are. Love you all. And again, go to blairsinger.com and check out more of these videos. Subscribe. Same thing with YouTube. Okay? Thanks, you guys.